This is the Mark II watch's Project 300. So I'm genuinely excited about this one. This is a long time coming. I ordered this around 3 months ago and it finally shipped. They are built after you order them and they're only built in small batches. So let's crack this dude open. All right, here we go. So this is some waxed packing paper here. That's kind of neat. Here's our little box. Okay. So we got packing slip. Yep, that's mine. And a little Mark II watch box. Mark II watches. Little sticker. The timing cards for this, so showing the different positions that it was set in, 6 positions to be adjusted in. And my serial number, although it says date of purchase August 30th, that's not accurate, but. And then how-to instructions and information about the watch. And there she is. So we've got our Project 300. We've got, this is a worn and wound strap tool. So you see that right there, worn and wound? I have one of these. I actually broke it, so it's really nice to see that they included this in there. I'm not sure if they partner with Worn and Wound or not, but I have seen this watch at the Worn and Wound wind-up watch fair. But that's a neat tool. You can definitely pick. This is a slim, easy to travel with watch strap tool. I like it. And then here is the watch itself. Let's get this packaging off and size it and then come back and have a look. Okay, so that was a bit of a process and I will explain why in a moment. Something I forgot that was in this case is a set of spare fat spring bars. I think these spring bars are thicker than the ones you normally get on watches similar to the Seiko fat spring bars. So in the case, 3 spots for watches and then an additional spot for the tools and the spare spring bars. This piece just kind of pulls out. It's just a foam insert. I did have to take out 3 links on this. This is a pretty good sized bracelet. I usually have to take out 2. So let's get this guy real quick. Now sized and de-stickered. This thing was covered in stickers. I assume that those are the ones that are on there from when it's being built so that it doesn't get scratched, but or in transit I guess, but it was just covered in them. So this is a watch built by a micro brand, but one of the older micro brands called Mark II. Generally they focus on homage-ish style watches, usually mil-spec recreations, so it's not an exact recreation so much as a slight alteration and interpretation of the design idea of the watch. And so this is the Project 300, which takes after the Omega Seamaster 300, which was built for the British Special Forces, and is an older dive watch. I believe these were, or the Omega was issued to the British Navy from like the late 60s to the mid 70s. So what you get is essentially this big triangle, which the originals were tritium, but this big triangle, lots of loom watch. Now, on this one, the bezel insert is a sapphire bezel insert, which is also loomed, and everything on this bezel insert is loomed. On the original, it was just the 10-minute markers that were loomed. And you can actually see that if you look at an original, because the loom is aged, it is like a yellow, but then next to it the markers are white. And they had a plastic insert in those, Bakelite inserts in those original ones. This one, sapphire insert, sapphire crystal, Superluminova, this is BGW9 on this, so it glows blue. They offer this watch in a date and a non-date variant. I will always pick a date variant. It's one more functional feature of that watch. I don't want to not. I use the watches a lot for their date. So it is a 60-click rotating bezel, and it feels pretty unique. And so the closest thing I've ever felt to this style bezel is my original Zodiac Seawolf, which had this like kind of ball bearing click system. Essentially, there's a ball bearing in the outer portion of the case set by a spring, and there's just a little slot for it to fall into in the bezel. I don't know if that's how this watch is done, but that's the tactile feel for it. So it's a 60 click, so one for every minute, and you can hear that. It's very distinct because it is a 60 click. It's really obvious where it's falling into. There really isn't, there's a small amount of play here. Nothing that you could really worry about. But it's just a tiny bit. There's no up and down, left, right play. It's just that back and forth. So really just a matter of how tight the bezel is and how easy it is to rotate. And so on the dial, all of the indices are loomed, or at least the 10-minute marker indices are loomed. Even this little one here next to the date, the minute markers are not, but the hour hand and the minute hand and the second hand tip actually are all loomed as well, and they're really well done. I mean, everything has to go up against how well a Pelagos is loomed up and how well it glows, but this and this doesn't glow as well as the Pelagos, but it glows really well. And having that BGW9, that is my favorite loom, so that's one of the reasons that I love this watch. So here's a loom shot for you. As you can see, that BGW9 glows really well. The entire bezel is loomed, and because there's an indice at every single minute marker, goes all the way around that track. Both the hour, minute hand, and actually the second hand as well have a good amount of loom, and you can see that right here as that second hand just floats around really smoothly, it looks like from here. So what I wanted to do is provide you with a comparison on this same type of loom from a different watch, and what you can see here is the Tudor Pelagos. And it's evident, as I was saying earlier, that the Pelagos is brighter, and it will definitely hold the charge longer because there's more loom in it. That being said, the Pelagos is like a high water mark, so on its own, fantastic, glows like a torch, looks great, and it's easily identifiable that what is the hour hand and what is the minute hand. They don't confuse in any way. The same way the Pelagos is a clear, defined shape difference between the two. I think it looks great. Evenly applied loom. They did a really good job. Moving on to the case. It's that Omega twisted lugs case. What I will say about this, and this is also a feature of the original that it's modeled after, is it's a very flat case. Those lugs turn down a little bit at the end, but it just goes kind of straight across. There's really no angling down of these lugs. And if you're the kind of person that doesn't like flat lugs and flat watches like this, then this watch is definitely not for you, because it's a flat watch. While we're on the side here, you can see that there is a signed crown here with Mark II on that crown. It is brushed here on the sides. It's almost satin on the sides here, and then you see that reflective surface on the bevels here on the edges. It's a really slim look. I was actually really impressed at how thin this watch looks and feels on wrist. So what they're telling us is that this is 41, which really looks like 40 at the bezel. But at the actual edges of the watch, which you can see there, 42.5. I mean, if you're rounding up, 42.7, which is, I mean, it's not a small watch. It's also looking here at like, yeah, that's 47.7. So let's just go say 48 on the lug to lug. It is a 20 millimeter lug width there. That I can tell you for sure, because that's what this bracelet is. And then including the crystal and the case back, we're looking at 13.5 thick. So thickness, really great. And lug to lug, not terrible, but the width of the watch is just really deceiving, because it is, one, an asymmetrical crown guard case, and two, the case definitely extends on both sides beyond the bezel. This side just ever so slightly, and on the right side, obviously, it's pretty substantial. But given its slim look, what catches me that I'm not super fond of is the bezel. The bezel, I assume it's so that it can rotate over the crown, but you notice that it's polished underneath, and then the knurling starts up here. So I think that because this mid case is so slim, the bezel has to be lifted like that, and you get this kind of hi-hat, this T look to it. And so you don't get as much grip here. And also in the case of grip, this bezel, it's a coin edge bezel, but it's not a sharp coin edge bezel. And so some watches, the Helio Seaforth is one that pops to mind, but have this really clean, crisp, sharp knurling to the edges, and this one does not have that. But it's definitely grippy enough, and also I'm not diving, so the most I'm using this for is, timing something like the laundry, right? On the case back, polished case back, says Mark II there, and around the edges it says Steel 316L, it says assembled in USA, Project 300. I have number 321, which is kind of neat given that it's a throwback to Omega. The 321 is that famous Omega movement, although it wouldn't have been in this watch. But and they're only making 500 of these. I believe initially they were going to make 300 of them because it's a Project 300, but they ended up moving that up to 500, and so this is 321 of 500. And then on the other side here we've got water resistant, 300 meters, sapphire, Swiss movement. And so, it's a pretty Spartan looking case back. It is polished. This, like it said on the back, is rated to 300 meters of water resistance. This is 1,000 feet, 300 meters. You notice here the hands for the hour and the minute hand, they're high polish, and the second hand is white. And that is a little feature that I really enjoy. I didn't even notice it until I had the watch in my hand. I didn't know it when I was buying it, but the high polish is really shiny and beautiful, and if I can catch it in a reflection here. And the white hand does stick out for that second track there. It is a screw down crown. Let's do the other side. Same finishing. It's this like satin polish on the top and satin brushing on the sides, and then all polish underneath. Solid end links on the bracelet. They are not fully articulated links. They are just oyster style links. If we go around, the clasp is a double push button deployant locking clasp with 3 micro adjusts on the side. The bracelet is also a screw link bracelet, which I love this. This is something that I really look for on all of my watches. It's kind of a mark of quality and thought that they put into their watch production. This, unlike a lot of watches, has two screws. So each side of this screw come out. One is a head and one is the pin. I haven't come across another company that does it like that except for Omega. On the Omega bracelets, it's got a screw on either side that can be unscrewed. It does make it symmetrical, which is really nice. You have the same look on either side of that bracelet, and I really do appreciate that. There is a milled clasp, but no dive extension, which is a little funky given that it's a dive watch. However, I think they know that pretty much no one is using this watch as a dive watch. And they do give you this really tight and tiny clasp, although with most tight and tiny clasps, you do have this little overhang of the actual deployment part, which needs to be this size so you can get your wrist in it. So let's take a look at that crown action. So screw down crown, pop it out, and that first position is winding. The second position, which I'm in now, is the date. And then that third position, you can see the second hand hacking and setting. It's a smooth set. I believe this is a 2824 in here, an ETA 2824. And I'm pretty sure it's the Elabre, the high-end version of that movement, and it's rhodium plated. It's something that I'll never see because I'm not going to crack this open. But it's nice to know it's in there. I guess my watchmaker gets to experience it. Let's put this on wrist. So there's a wrist shot for you. It, like I said, is a very flat watch. It does not curve down. It is comfortable. I mean, this bracelet is comfortable. The watch is comfortable. I wear my watches low, but most people wear them up here. It fits well and flat up on the wrist. It is, you hear that? Rattly, and that's this locking portion of the clasp here. I wonder if I hit it with some white grease if it'll stop that rattle, but it's not a super tight connection here. If that bothers you, if that's the kind of thing that bothers you, if you're not into vintage watches, then maybe steer clear of the bracelet. They do offer a rubber strap and a NATO for this one if you buy it from them. So the way you get a hold of one of these, if you want them, because they're obviously still out there, this is only number 321 out of 500, is you do have to sign up. And essentially what happens is he releases small batches. Mine was around 15. You get an email, you gotta, put the money down and wait for your watch. They do the email list first, and then they do open purchasing. But I mean, if you want it, sign up for it and wait till your number comes up. He has done, this is actually part of their Benchcraft series, and they also have a ready-to-wear series. Ready-to-wear just means they have them in stock. They're not handmade or hand-assembled in the US, where this one is from their shop in PA. So the Benchcraft ones like this one are all hand-assembled, and they're a limited run, and they've done 3 versions so far. They've done a sub or a milk house, I think it's a sub homage, and they did a Pan Am GMT, which is called the Key West, and then they did this one, and this is the only one that I'd have out of them, although the Key West is gorgeous. Look it up. I would say if you're into them, you've really got 2 opportunities to see these watches in the flesh that I'm aware of, which are both the Worn and Wound wind-ups, one in New York and one in San Francisco, I believe. If you are looking to get your hands on this during the pandemic, I guess phone a friend that has one, because I don't know that those 2 watch fairs are going to go on. Hopefully they will this year, but at least in New York, we're in pretty big lockdown. You can, I guess, return these if you ordered them, but check out their website. They do some really great stuff, especially if you're into vintage lookalikes in a modern body and military homages. yeah, man, this is a gorgeous thing. So I will throw up the stats right here. Let me know what you think in the comments. Love to hear your opinion. If you are into these videos, please subscribe. It does help my channel grow. And see you next time.